What I'm going to talk about for the next few minutes is a movie called Three Identical Strangers. It's a documentary that was made, I think, maybe three or 4 years ago, and it is an excellent documentary that I do recommend. Now, why I bring it up in this particular at this particular juncture is relevant. Uh, I recorded a video yesterday in which I was looking at this this doctor this doctor's statements in court. This doctor who had been instrumental in developing vaccines through the years, and how he essentially admitted in court. He didn't essentially admit it. He categorically admitted to what most of us would consider to be atrocities. Using vulnerable populations for experimentation, with little or any pangs of conscience whatsoever. And he was just, again, quite upfront about it in this, as you can see if you watch the video that I recorded yesterday. Now, the video itself of this man giving this testimony is not something you can find on YouTube. You type in this guy's name on YouTube, and those videos do not come up. Other videos come up, which seem to frame this guy in a much more positive light. But these videos where he's talking in court about various, various misdeeds and acts that I would call atrocities, you don't find that information on YouTube, which is pretty much perfect until now, I guess, until I put it on YouTube on my little bitty channel. That's par for the course for YouTube, unfortunately. But there was that video that I recorded yesterday, and then the day before yesterday, I brought up the nation of Israel and the Baj, and how the fact that they were so aggressive there, and so aggressive and oppressive and draconian in a way that went beyond all other nations. It was accelerated there. And I asked the question, concerning those who are interested in the doings of the tribe, and who saw the tribe as being ethnocentric and as looking out for their own, at the expense of looking out for anybody else. I asked the question, why would they be forcing this junk on their own people, on their own population? And I got a few answers to that one, and I don't know the answer, but I thought it was an interesting question. Now, this movie, Three Identical Strangers, in brief, it's about three men who find out later on in life that they are who discover each other, through a series of accidents that seem miraculous, they find each other, and they find that they were born at the same time. They are triplets. They are identical triplets. And again, the first half of the movie is about how these three guys, at this point they're in their early 20s, or thereabouts, how they find one another, and it starts off with this, two of the guys, just like one guy goes to a college where the other guy had been before, and they all recognize him and think that he's somebody else. So he ends up getting curious and tracking down this guy and finding that this guy looks exactly like him. And then that story goes on the news, and some other guy watching TV and sees these two guys who look exactly like each other, and he realizes he looks exactly like them. and so then he comes by and introduces himself, and hence the name Three Identical Strangers. It comes out that these three guys had been put up for adoption, and they'd all been adopted out to different families. And like I said, the first half of the movie is just sort of about the miracle of them finding each other and how happy they were when they found each other, and they became best friends and comrades, and they had a lot of fun together, and they were on a lot. They were on like Donahue and other shows, and talking about their incredible story and everything. But then the second half of the movie starts to get into the meat of the story, where we find out that in fact these three men had been the unwitting subjects of a very elaborate experiment. That both them and their families, their separate families, had been the subjects of this elaborate experiment, and that the adoption agency had was in league with this certain psychologist who wanted to explore the question of nature versus nurture, and saw this opportunity with these three infant boys who were the same genetically. But so he said, well, if we have each of them be raised in a different family, each family representing a different echelon of the class system. So if we adopt one of them out to a working class family, one of them to a middle class family, and one of them to an affluent family, well, let's see what comes of that. Let's see how they develop. And regularly, while they were growing up, this organization, this adoptive organization / psychological think tank, I suppose, they sent out their men to come and chart the boys' progress, see what they were doing in these different places, and asking them questions and comparing notes, and just seeing again how each of them behaved differently in their own environments, and what they had in common despite the differences in their own environments. It soon came out when it was discovered that the three boys were triplets, and that the adoptive agency chose to separate them and give them to different families without telling the families that each of the boys had two identical twins, and also separating them from one another at a young age. Twins, of course, have this familiarity, this intimacy with one another, and so there was no doubt some trauma that was inflicted in just tearing them apart from one another, all for the sake of this psychological experiment, which they kept everybody in the dark about. The families, the kids, as they were growing up, they were all kept in the dark about all of this, and so eventually, the upshot of everything that takes place is it doesn't lead to a happy ending. Although the boys, the young men are happy together when they first meet each other, then there's a lot of trauma to be processed, and there's a lot of stuff that comes out about the unethical way that this the really remorseless manner with which this organization chose to treat these people inhumanly, all for the sake of their experiments. So I won't give the ending away, but it does end in tragedy. That is very much related to the behavior that was exhibited by those entities, the ones who ran the adoptive organization, and this psychological think tank, and the man who was the mastermind of it all. Now, what I think is interesting, and how I think this relates to the questions I asked before, is particularly the question of why would Israel be so, why would the ruling elites in Israel want to subject all of their population to this experimental vaccine with which has been shown to have very detrimental short-term effects in many people, and whose long-term effects remain unknown. Why would they want to subject their population to something like that? And it turns out the one thing I haven't revealed yet about this movie is that everyone involved is Jewish. The adoptive agency was a Jewish agency. The psychiatrist who and his staff who wanted to conduct this experiment were also Jewish. But the boys were Jewish, and the families they were adopted out to were also Jewish. And so there was this, it was like a Jew on Jew atrocity. And this fact strengthens in me the conviction that when you get right down to it, it is about us and them, and when we talk about us and them, we're not talking about any particular ethnicity. Yes, certain ethnicities are more represented among the nefarious elites than others. There's absolutely no question about that. But at the same time, would these people think twice about doing things that would have the ultimate end result of hurting their own kind, or being to the detriment of their own kind? It would seem, from both the Baj, the way that they're conducting the Baj in Israel, and from the evidence that we're introduced to in this movie, Three Identical Strangers, that they don't really care about that. This am I claiming that they don't care about preserving their ethnicity? No, I'm not saying that. So don't try to read things into what I'm saying that I'm not saying. But what I am saying is, my strong suspicion is that among those of them who are powerful and who consider themselves to be among the elite, they see the ordinary types who share their DNA, the everyday types, the normies, let's say, who share their DNA. They see them as maybe as much as the Goyim, as much Goyim-esque as they do the rest of us, and that what marks us for our status doesn't really boil down to our ethnicity in these cases, but it really boils down more just to partly to class, but also partly just, I think, to how these people feel themselves. Certain people, those with the power and control, they just have this mindset that they are fit to rule, and the rest of us are fit only to be slaves to them, and that the rest of us can be culled at their discretion. and that they would like for there to be a hell of a lot less of us now than there are right now. And to that end, they seem to be hard at work devising ways to make the quality of life for the rest of us, both the quality of our lives, the length of our lives, and the number of us, generally speaking. They are interested in affecting depopulation amongst us, amongst the rest of the human population that does not include them, which is, if we can call them human, of course, which is a whole different question. So those are my thoughts on this subject, and please do watch this movie if you're interested. I think it's a very very powerful documentary. I know some documentaries are, I used to think documentaries were the best kind of movie because they were real, quote unquote. But obviously, documentaries can be manipulated, and I mean, just watch any Michael Moore film. But this movie, I think, is very well done, and the point of it is very well taken. And I'll leave a link to it below. So tell me what you think, and thanks for watching. My name's Andy Nowicki. Check out my work at altrightnovelist.com. Read my latest book, The Insurrectionist, at terrorhousepress.com.